Hello, this is Arielle from Inconspicuous Bear, and I'll be narrating the heroic version of the Kromog encounter in Blackrock Foundry from a Guardian point of view. Kromog is probably the first end boss encounter you will go to when going through Heroic Foundry, and of all the encounters this far, it's probably the one with the highest amount of tank damage. Fortunately, Guardians have a couple of tricks to completely trivialize the entire encounter, which may not be apparent at first glance. So, let's just get started. The first mechanic you need to be aware of is called Fists of Stone. Basically, every melee attack he does is actually a cleave, and the cleave, it's like a double attack, sort of. So he'll melee, and then part of that will also be a Fists of Stone, so you get a melee and a Fists of Stone at the same time. The Fists of Stone does about 500k physical before armor, and is split between the two closest targets within 15 yards of each other. Basically, that means the two tanks have to stand on top of each other for most of the fight. The second thing you'll need to be aware of is called Warped Armor. This is a debuff he'll put on the tank currently tanking him, and it stacks up to 5 times, greatly reducing your movement speed and increasing the amount of physical damage you take. This is a really nasty debuff, because it affects pretty much all the damage he does, from melees to stone fists to slam, so it's really, really nasty. And unfortunately, you have to time it such that one tank will end up taking 2 stacks, and one will end up taking 3. This is just because of the way the timers work out. Now, which one does which will kind of be up to you guys, or to you and how your raid wants to do it. Since we can actually cheese a lot of things in this encounter, maybe taking 3 is not so bad. It's kind of up to you. But just be aware that the timer is really, really finicky on this debuff, and it's really quite nasty for some tanks more than others. The third thing you need to worry about is something called Slam. Basically, what the boss will do is smash where the tanks are currently standing at the time of cast for a lot of physical damage, and this damage is reduced the further you are away. One of the you can do a couple things. 1, just walk away, depending on what your stacks are. 2, you can displace your beast away, basically take no damage, and then just skull bash back in to make sure that you're there by the time you and your co-tank need to be there, i.e. after the slam's over. You can also just cooldown it and sit it, depending on the number of stacks you have. That may be a valid option. You have a lot of options available to you to handle this, so just pick whichever one is right for the given situation. The next thing you have to worry about is something called Reverberations. This happens after every rippling smash, which is something that you don't care about, and after every smash, which is the thing I just talked about. Basically, these little sonic circles will appear on the ground and just kind of travel outwards from the boss. Ideally, you don't really want to step in them. By themselves, they aren't too bad, but if you, say, combine a few of them with the stone fist, suddenly stuff starts to hurt a lot. So, just be careful of them if you can. Also, might want to lay out some sort of plan for which direction you and your co-tank are going to travel when Reverberations come out, so that you don't end up splitting up and one of you takes a stone fist to the face, because that would really suck and really hurt, especially if you have a high number of stacks up. So be prepared and have a plan on how to handle them going into the encounter. The second to last thing you have to worry about is called Thundering Blows. Basically, he'll just start smashing the ground and knock anyone that's not in one of those little grabby hands up in the air, and do a bunch of physical damage to them while they're in the air. Now, you could sit in the hand if you wanted to. However, I found that was kind of hit and miss, depending on how cognizant your DPS were at breaking you out. I actually just found it was much easier just to eat the damage, and then displace your beast back down, so I avoided the fall damage, and that way you are always out of the hand. You're not in any danger of dying, because you can just save Snarling Ward, Barkskin maybe, Pulverize if you take it, just for and a bunch of rage to heal yourself during the Thundering Blows, so you're not going to die, and you're already out of the hand, so you kind of defeat the mechanic already. The only thing about Displacer Beast is make sure that you hit it when you're close to the ground, so you don't end up just re-teleporting midair, which would kind of be bad. The last thing you need to be prepared for is Frenzy, which happens when Kromog's at 30% or lower. His attack speed will go up by 20%, his damage will go up by 20%, and the abilities that affect everyone else, i.e. not you, are used more frequently. The smash frequency doesn't seem to go up, but the other things that affect other people go up. So you will see more reverberations, but you won't see more smashes. And obviously the Stone Fist frequency is exactly the same as melee frequency, so that naturally goes up. Generally, tank cooldowns aren't really necessary to handle this. It's just more of being cognizant of your active mitigation and making sure that you're using it properly. That'll keep you alive just fine. But healers, everyone else is going to have a lot more to deal with because they have to move more. But for tanks, it doesn't really change anything. Now let's talk about talents. This is the first encounter where you'll see a couple of different possible talent options available. The first primarily being Displacer Beast, because Displacer Beast is extremely good for this fight. Instant movement and the ability to teleport from the air to the ground is incredibly useful, so no reason not to take it. Obviously Scenario Ward, Soul of Force, and Demon Scenarios are all the same. However, this actually, I just realized this today while looking through my combat log, is that Guardian of Elune would be extremely good on this fight, and the reason for that is the 2-second swing timer. In a 2-second swing timer, normal Savage Defense will only catch 3 hits, and the chances of dodging a number approaching 2 are incredibly small, because regular Savage Defense only is, on average, good enough to come close to GOE on 4 swings. On 3, no, not good. So GOE giving you 2 guaranteed dodges. Now it's 2 guaranteed melees and 2 guaranteed Stone Fist dodges per usage, if you time it correctly, is incredibly strong. It's also incredibly strong because this encounter features quite a lot of time in which nothing actually is being done to the tanks. So every time he smashes, for example, that's 6 seconds of free recharge. Every time he does a reverberating smash, that's another 5 or 6 seconds of free recharge. So you can recharge GOE a lot and avoid a ton of the damage. And it'd probably be harder to make use of than Pulverize because you have to time it relative to his melee swings, but it's extremely strong. So keep that in mind when you're picking your talents for this fight. You can basically reduce the melee and Stone Fist damage to almost nothing with GOE. Maybe like 30%-ish of the total will hit you, which is like 0. Like, it's not 0, but it's an incredibly small number, which means you will require incredibly low amounts of healing. So it's something to keep in mind. Otherwise, go with Pulverize, because Bristling Fur is worthless for this fight. Glyphs for this fight are pretty standard. You want the SI glyph just to be able to recharge and handle smashes if you can't move out of them for whatever reason, because you can't Displacer Beast out of all of them and still have it for the overwhelming blows, the thing that knocks you up in the air, thundering blows or something. Anyway, Maul glyph is worthless because there's no cleave damage. Stampeding Roar is kind of just a default glyph. There is no other useful glyph. Rebirth, maybe? I don't know. But the rest of the major glyphs are pretty worthless for this fight. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and good luck in Blackrock Foundry.